Hello, welcome to today's webinar on the grants management special item number. We are really excited you've joined us today. My name's Andrea Sampanis. I'm the Grants QSMO Director. We've got a good agenda here. I want to say one quick note, closed captioning is available for this webinar, and we are going to make the slides available after the webinar along with a recording in a few weeks. So that's generally a question we get. Wanted to address that at the top. There will be time at the end for Q&A. Please leverage the Q&A function, but we'll be holding those to address those at the end. We're excited to share with you all the work we've been doing between HHS Grants QSMO as well as the GSA team to establish this SIN and begin accepting applications. One note that this vendor webinar is appropriately named, it's focused on the vendor community. Agency partners, our grant recipients that may have dialed in, you're welcome to listen, but I just do want to note that the content is really targeted at industry. It's to support industry as you prepare your applications. Let's see, let's go to the next slide. We have a very full agenda for you today. We're going to start off with talking about how to make sure you get on the GSA multiple award schedules. Jenna and Sarah will be talking about that. I'm going to dive deeper into preparing your SIN application, really walking through that process and giving a few notes there. Definitely turning it over to Justin for opportunities for GSA's cooperative purchasing program. And as I mentioned earlier, allowing for a Q&A section so we can answer your questions as much as possible. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jenna to begin talking about getting on the MAS.
Thank you. My name is Jenna Piper, and also introducing Sarah Lindberg. We're the Acquisition Solutions Development portion of GSA. And if you'll go to the next slide, yes, working with GSA. I'll go into the steps to get on GSA schedule. So let's walk through the steps to get onto the GSA schedule. You can find detailed guidance on the MAS roadmap, multiple award schedule MAS, and links are provided on this slide to the roadmap and help and templates for each step of the process. And first, you complete the mandatory Pathways to Success training. This 3 to 4 hour course covers the GSA schedules program, contractor expectations, business planning, and how to submit a quality offer. You must acknowledge completion of this training in the e-offer system within the past year. Next, you complete the readiness assessment. This is an indicator of business success and helps determine your next steps. It must be completed by a designated authorized negotiator who is an employee of your company, and you'll also acknowledge this in e-offer. Then review the solicitation, which details required elements, evaluation criteria, and terms and conditions. The checklist summarizes submission requirements, so use the category-specific tabs to ensure nothing is missed. And before competing for government contracts, register your business and obtain a unique entity identifier, or UEI, on SAM.gov. And you'll need to register for e-offer, which you will use for submissions and modifications as mentioned earlier. When preparing your submission, use our GSA templates for forms and compile your information in e-offer. And some fields have character limits, so preparing your content in another application and copy and paste it into the system, it's recommended. Also be sure to address all SIN-specific requirements. And finally, log into e-offer to upload your forms, sign, and submit. Once submitted, your offer will be assigned to a contracting officer who may request additional information. If you already hold a GSA schedule contract, please work directly with your contracting officer to submit a modification to add the SIN to your existing contract, which Sarah will explain on the next slide. So we can go to the next slide.
Good afternoon. As Jenna stated, this is the steps to actually add the SIN onto your MAS contract. And if you currently have a contract on schedule, you should have a point of contact that you've worked with to get on schedule, that are currently working with to maintain your contract. So once you're ready to add this in, you'll want to reach out to them, give them the heads up that you're wanting to add this, and they can help you guide through these 4 steps as well. And part of that is going out to the mass modification guidance page and ensuring that you follow all the instructions and you're using the required templates for this SIN. Specific to this SIN, you'll want to review the components of the grant management capabilities framework. This is all the standards that are required, and so you'll want to ensure that you are meeting those standards. There will be an evaluation to ensure that you have everything that is required for this SIN. From there, you'll also required is to review the mass SIN table and complete those templates as well. And then once you're done, you'll gather all your documents. Again, I recommend working with your point of contact, your CO or your CS that you currently work with, and let them assist you in reviewing these documents. Then you can go in and submit all your documents through the eOffer eMod system as an add SIN. You'll want to make sure that your contracting administrator or your point of contact on your contract submits the mod request. Next slide, please. And so we'd like to, at the end, we'll open it up for questions, but as well, if you do have any other questions that maybe you're not sure who your point of contact is, you can always reach out to the National Customer Service Center and they can help you as well. And then we always like to provide some future trainings that we have coming up. And from there, I'd like to send it back to Andrea.
Thank you so much. I'm going to get my timer started so I don't go too long and allow for a lot of questions. Again, as a reminder, you can put those Q&A, any questions you might have in the Q&A function. So to start out, we want to walk through the high-level application process. And we're going to dive down in the following slides also. Sarah and Jenna just talked about applying for the multiple award schedules. The next step you'll be wanting to do is to determine the subgroups or select which subgroup you want to apply for. I'm going to walk into further detail on that. Once you've determined your subgroup, then you're going to work on preparing your submission package. There's a lot of links on this slide. When you download the slides, you'll be able to access all the links. Additionally, I would note up top, we do have detailed vendor guidance already available on our acquisition gateway for this SIN that walks through very similar information to what we're sharing today. So again, back to the preparing your submission. Everything that we're looking at when it comes to the Grants QSMO's role in evaluating the technical application relates to the Grants Management Capabilities Framework. That really is all of our standards, our requirements, common forms, common interfaces we're expecting that really aligns right up to the application package. If you were to go to these links or go online right now today, you can see it. If you search for SIN 518210GM, you would see a link to the technical narrative response template as well as the solution service definition template. Those really directly align to our evaluation criteria, and they're asking a vendor questions how your solution that you're proposing to get on the SIN really complies with that grants management capability framework. If you are applying to bring a solution, a technology solution onto the marketplace, then there's an additional request for demonstration guidance I'm going to walk through soon. So you will submit your package once you have it ready to go. You would do that by reaching out to your contracting officer to add, to sort of submit that application and add your solution or service to our SIN. There's an online tool to do that. Then the CO will be working with GSA, the team here, as well as Grants QSMO for us to complete that evaluation. And you'll hear back through the GSA review. All right, so let's keep going to talk specifically about the subgroup selection because I think there could be questions. As we've mentioned in earlier webinars, The grants QSMO worked closely with the financial management QSMO. Their SIN is 518210FM. If you've ever worked with that SIN, you'll see a lot of similarities. The QSMOs work pretty closely together across the federal government. However, our subgroups are obviously very different because ours are specific to grants. But hopefully you'll see a lot of similarities across evaluation criteria, across the type of application we're asking you for. First subgroup is core award management. This has been historically the focus of the grants QSMO marketplace when it comes to the private sector. It really is the commercial pre-configured software package that is core award, meaning application intake, review, the issuance of the award, management of the award, and closeout, and modification of that award. However, in working with our agencies, we learned that, and even recipient feedback, there's additional need for other services and other solutions. So we added another subgroup, additional grants management solutions and services. That could include risk assessment services or risk assessment tools, single audit, subrecipient monitoring. There's a whole host of things that can fall under additional grants management solutions and services. The third group is grants management technology operations services. Also, in working very closely with our financial management peers, we know that most of the spend, that's sort of, I think the majority of the spend is happening in that technology operations support. That is the implementation, the O&M, the help desk support for our major systems. So we wanted to make sure we had an area for that. If I had to guess, I think that's where some of the initial buying will happen is under these technology operation services. I want to stress that you as vendors can apply for multiple subgroups. These are not meant to be rigid boundaries. You can apply multiple times. You do not have to wait and put all the application in at once. You can apply once for a service for technology operations and come back later and bring in an additional GM solution. We at the Grants QSMO have worked with GSA. We have target timelines to review things. And the ones that I'm going to walk the next slide of what you actually do to apply, things that take fewer artifacts to apply, obviously will get a faster review. That's typically on the services side. So I would encourage you, don't wait till you have everything done and submit 10 all at once. It's okay if you want to submit the first one and then come back and submit another one later if you need more time to work on that application. So what are those application requirements? Again, you see across the top are 3 subgroups. Along the left-hand side really are the specific artifacts that you'll see if you go today to our acquisition gateway or the GSA site. First is the technical narrative response template. That directly aligns to our evaluation criteria. It's got questions in there. You as the vendor will be answering them and giving us links to documentation to sort of prove that. This is required for as you can see, across everything, every service, every solution that you are applying for. Additionally, every solution and service requires a solution service definition template. This is an Excel file where you are defining what that service is. What is the name? What does it do? How does it align to the grants management standards, or what we call the FIBF for Federal Integrated Business Framework. The other 2 additional pieces require recorded demonstrations, and if needed, or if you make it, then also live demonstrations. This is specific for if you're applying for technology offerings, we want to actually see a demo of that solution. I'm gonna walk through that in the following slides. I think that is all. Oh, the one thing I was going to note on that, as I mentioned before, we do encourage you, like I said, some of the ones, the operation services or the in general grants management services that don't require a pre-recorded demo, you may be able to complete that application faster than it would take to actually do the full demonstration and make sure you're demoing all the pieces based on the guidance. So please note, we do encourage you to submit those applications when they're ready. There's no expectation that it has to be all at once together. All right, so to walk through the solution demonstration instructions, let's go to the next slide. As I mentioned, there's two parts. One is the pre-recorded demonstration, and the second part is the actual live demonstration. The live demonstration actually only applies for our core award management systems. So for a pre-recorded demonstration, it's for, again, core award as well as additional general management or grants management solutions. When it comes to the core award, we specifically picked two business scenarios for you to demo. If you've applied ever before in our RFIs, you will probably recognize those what we call our use cases. They're common use cases we have in grants management specific to the federal government that we want to see the offer demonstrate specific to that scenario. Honestly, some of the biggest feedback and questions we get from our agencies is show us proof that this can work within our environment. And so that's why we really rely on those business cases for that. Additionally, we can't really predict all the different possibilities of grants management solutions that aren't core award management. So for that, we did not specifically pick two scenarios because that would be practically impossible to think through all the different combinations. But we do want you to demonstrate to us and make sure that you give us that link so that we can leverage it when we're doing the technical evaluation. And you would link that in your technical narrative response, sort of as proof of how you are meeting our requirements. Pre-recorded demos should not exceed 60 minutes. You got to remember, we have a lot of feds watching these demos, so we have to limit it to 60 minutes. They should be accessed via links. You could post it on a YouTube site that maybe only you can see. If you need to give us, for instance, a password, that's understandable. But the idea is we don't want to have the full sort of standalone file. It'd be great if you could post it and give us a link to that. One thing I didn't walk through is we do get some questions related to available APIs because sometimes it may require you to have an existing federal customer in order to get access to that federal API. So we just need to, some of the APIs are actually available now to the public, so we would expect you to be able to demonstrate that. Others, though, we need you to demonstrate your readiness, that you understand what's out there. We do have very detailed documentation on what we call our API library, also linked within our grants management capability framework. That API library has access for all the public API documents to support you in getting started in that effort. Let's go to the next slide. So the live demonstration, again, this is a very similar process to the financial management QSMO. For their core general ledger solution, it's specific for us for our core award management solution. When a grant is awarded, this is the system that the grant spends the vast majority of its time in. 5-10 years is managed in these grant systems. So they are very, very large. What we want to do, we'll watch the demonstration, the pre-recorded demonstration, and if everything passes, we will be inviting you as a vendor back to do a live demonstration. The audience will be government-wide advisors watching these capabilities. In working with the FMQSMO, it's one of the things the vendors and the agency potential buyers love the most because it's a demonstration, right? You're able to show your product, and we bring all the interested buyers there to watch it and advise or observe that demo. The scope of that is 5 business scenarios. Again, we try to pick the scenarios that we want you to demo because it allows us to show apples to apples and proof of your solution being able to meet the federal integrated business framework specific grants management use cases. These are all picked and very well defined in our core award management demonstration guide. So we've defined all of this there. Key logistics to note, it is limited to 1 business day or 8 hours, including that Q&A. It's hosted on a web platform, so it is live, but it is not in person, so that it will allow us to accommodate government-wide reviewers. Not all of our buyers live here. I live in Washington, D.C. area, but that's not true of everyone. So we try to make it as available to others as possible. All right. One other question we've gotten is a question of like driving that agency demand. What am I doing as the grants QSMO director to make sure one, vendors are aware, but also agencies are aware? We've been doing a lot to make sure folks know this is out there. One, we engage with the Council of Federal Financial Assistance, or what you may know as the COFA. We, the Grants QSMO, hold a federal awarding agency working group, which has over 250 members. We do annual one-on-one agency meetings. I spend, honestly, the majority of my time meeting with agencies and talking to them about their needs, but across services or solutions. Additionally, we work very closely with OMB, who's in charge of the federal budget guidance, and they're giving guidance out to agencies related to the president's management agenda and goals on consolidation and leveraging shared services. Additionally, we as the Grants QSMO are working with different stakeholder groups with their conferences, not just to the federal, but also state, local, tribal markets to make sure everyone is aware that this SIN is out. It's open for applications. But also very importantly, that Justin's going to talk about in a second, it's also open for our grant recipients to leverage. That is through cooperative purchasing program. The tribes, state, local governments, county governments, cities are all able to purchase off of our SIN. In addition, they may have other contracts, but now because we put it where we did within GSA's multiple award schedule, it is opening a very large market offering to our recipients who also have to follow 2 CFR requirements. If you don't know what 2 CFR is, I would highly encourage you to review that, because if you're applying for grants, there is no question you really need to understand 2 CFR. It's a core part of our capability framework. I think before we go to the next section, by the way, if you are a government entity or association or anyone with questions, we've got our email down there, grantsqsmo@hhs.gov. You can always reach out to us. So that's the only, want to make sure you know how to contact us. Before we turn it over to Justin, though, I think we're going to open this up to 2 polls because we are very interested to see what the industry interest is and to try to get a better understanding of when you might apply. First question being, are you interested in applying to the grants management SIN? Don't worry, we're not going to hold you to you must apply. We're just curious of that interest level. And we're also very curious of if there is a timeline you're looking to apply within. We do have agencies interested in buying off of the SIN. Not just one, I'd say multiple agencies looking to us. However, we have to make sure we have that marketplace created. We have a storefront, but we need to put products in that store. And the only way we do that is by applying. I'm hopeful that today's webinar will explain to you, you don't need to wait and do it all at once. You can apply service after service after service, then bring in your solution. That is completely allowed. We actually sort of expect that. That's how it's worked on the FM QSMO application. We at the Grants QSMO can review service applications faster than when we do the offerings. Obviously, there's just more to watch, more schedule or demos to get scheduled. Let's see. I don't know if we will see the results of that poll or if later they'll come to us, so thank you for voting. Hopefully some of you voted. I think with that, I'll continue to reiterate, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. And now I'm going to hand it over to Justin to talk about cooperative purchasing.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrea, and thank you all for joining us here today. My name is Justin Cannon, and I work for GSA, and I work within the Federal Acquisition Service as a solution manager for the IT category, and I further specialize in the cooperative purchasing program. Next slide, please. So this slide gives an overview of the program that I'll be speaking about today, but we have this program in place which helps our partners to fulfill your business goals. And we do this by tapping into our contracts and our acquisition tools and really lifting some of that administrative burden off of our partners. It's really as simple as that. So for our vendor partners, it really gives you direct access to government buyers. And there's a huge untapped market out there for that. And for our agency partners on the flip side, we provide support with full acquisition lifecycle. So I know we've been talking about the SIN. The new SIN is 518210GM today, but I'd like to give you a little bit bigger picture of the cooperative purchasing program and how it can be a benefit to you in your business goals. So I would like to also say that when you apply for this SIN or add this SIN, this automatically puts you on the cooperative purchasing program. So you fully get to take advantage of this by tapping into our contracts and our acquisition tools. There's a huge need out there in the marketplace right now. So this is just a crash course. This is for your information. Quickly as I can present all of the details of the cooperative purchasing program for your benefit. We do have much more detailed information on our website, but I'll give you an overview here today. So the GSA's cooperative purchasing program is a 24-year-old program. It was introduced in 2002 under the GSA IT Schedule 70 contract, and it allows state agencies, local governments, tribal and territorial agencies to purchase pre-vetted IT solutions off of the GSA mass schedule. So it's a huge opportunity for local governments, counties, universities, public school systems to leverage the entire buying power of the federal government and have these pre-competed contracts into place. Offerings available under the cooperative purchasing program include all types of IT products, services, and solutions. We spoke a little bit about the new SIN 518210GM, which is included in this. Also included are mobile devices, mobile application management tools, automated data processing equipment, so firmware, any type of software or hardware you could imagine, cloud computing services, as well as IT professional services and cybersecurity. So a wide range of commercially available products and services in the IT category. It also allows agencies to participate in some of the existing BPAs, like the second generation IT and the Advantage Select desktops and laptops. So as I mentioned, the co-op program is part of the larger multiple awards schedule for GSA. So I will touch on an overview of the multiple awards schedule as a whole. Some of you might already be aware of this, so this is just a foundational knowledge of the program as a whole. What is the multiple awards schedule? Well, some people also refer to it as the GSA schedule or federal supply schedule, but in a nutshell, it's a 5-year IDIQ contract with 3 5-year options. So it's designed as a long-term, government-wide, potentially a 20-year contract with commercial companies that provide access to a variety of IT offerings and services. And I'll just give you some stats to show you the breadth of this program. The ITC is the largest IT commercial vehicle within all of the federal government. It includes 7.5 million products and services from over 4,600 vetted suppliers. And of those suppliers, over 80% are small business. So it really helps a lot with agencies' small business fulfillment goals. ITC as a whole, the total annual program spend last year was $39.4 billion. So you can see the size and the scope of this is pretty massive. I'll touch on some benefits to the agencies as well as to our vendor partners. The multiple award schedule offers pre-competed contracts, which leads to very fast acquisition cycles. Streamlined ordering process, because its guideline is based on FAR 8. Negotiated ceiling rates for prices, terms and conditions are in place, and it helps with compliance and small business set-asides. It also helps with flexibility for agencies to acquire new emerging technologies. The multiple award schedule always has continuous on-ramp and off-ramp for vendors and new products. So it has that flexibility baked in. Agencies can use existing BPAs, but they can also establish their own BPAs to increase economies of scale. The multiple award schedule in the cooperative purchasing program is organized by categories, further defined by subcategories and special item numbers. I mentioned some of those previously: cloud, hardware, software, cybersecurity, IT professional services, enterprise telecom services are just to name a few. And also, EULAs are already in place. The established end user license agreements are baked in at the master contract level. So again, the benefits for our partner agencies, as well as our partner vendors, our speed, cost savings, and support. So agencies are able to acquire information technology commodities from all of the pre-vetted vendors at lower than open market rates and in less time than going the traditional full and open route. And the contract pricing is based off of negotiated best commercial pricing, and it does allow agencies to further negotiate rates and pricing at the task order level. Our agency provides acquisition lifecycle support. So as buyer agencies are needing any type of project support in the acquisition lifecycle, we can provide in-house subject matter experts for contracting consultants, complementary scope reviews and solution recommendations, access to buying guides and other ordering guides, also have reusable templates and examples of similar contract actions. We offer marketing research support, as well as training seminars, such as on-demand, virtual, in-person, and customized acquisition training. So next, I'd like to go through a little bit of an example of the state local ordering procedures. For all of those who are in this webinar, agencies sometimes need to know a little bit about the backgrounds of what state ordering procedures look like. So from our perspective, we have no federally mandated ordering procedures or oversights when the state and local agencies utilize GSA contracts under the Cooperative Purchasing Program. We recommend that they use FAR 8.405 as a guideline, but it's not mandated. So this allows the flexibility for state and locals to follow their own ordering guidelines and procedures. They are allowed to use OLMs, or order level materials, under the Cooperative Purchasing Program, and it's allowed up to 1/3 of the value of schedule orders on certain schedules. When releasing a request for quote, agencies should include language noting that the purchase is being done against the GSA multiple award schedule, and state and local agencies do not need to use GSA eBuy. They can use their own systems. However, a notice can be posted on eBuy, or they can post a notice on eBuy simply notifying all the vendors that a request for quote was released under their systems. So they can utilize their own systems or a hybrid of our systems and their systems. And lastly, for the ordering procedures, we do require that all contracts, POs, and VPAs must include the vendor's GSA contract number. So that's a summary of the ordering procedures. So I'm going to pause right there. There are some other scheduled pricing recommendations for the agencies that vendors should look out for. Agencies can request spot reductions. The prices that are on GSA Advantage are the ceiling prices, and there is an IFF, or an industrial funding fee. Prices and are available to the local and state entities. They do include a 0.75% IFF to cover the administrative costs incurred to operate the mass program. And this is an industry paid, not a separate claim for the agencies. So the prices that are quoted are the prices that the agencies will pay. I'm going to pause right there before I turn it back over to Andrea and just make one final call to action. If you're a vendor on this call and you're interested in this, please, I encourage you, put a reminder on your calendar right after this call to add this in to your contracts, apply for this. Please try to support our vendors, our vendor and our agencies in this, and get first mover advantage on this. So thank you again so much for your attention, and I'll turn it back over to Andrea.
Thank you, Justin. And thank you for those of you who've entered questions. It honestly also helps us at the QSMO to understand where there's confusion possibly, and just make sure we're getting you the most pertinent information. I'm going to try, I think most of them are directed at the Grants QSMO, so I'm going to try my best to answer these. While at the same time, I don't know that I'm just going to say answer live. So, okay, let's see. We got a question of, is FedRAMP a requirement for the SIN? It is not a requirement for the SIN to be on the SIN. We do ask you in the solution service definition template, there's a technology tab. We do ask you about your FedRAMP ID information at the infrastructure, platform, and software level. I will tell you it's not required, but it is definitely a big interest of the CIOs that we work with when they go to procure a system. Simply because it's a fast way for them to implement. They are more able to leverage the documentation that are available by having that FedRAMP ID. So hopefully that answers that question. Let's see. This may be a question that Jenna and Sarah, I'm going to read it out loud and give my best guess, but you tell me if I'm wrong. The question is, for most subgroups, you first have to be a member of the broader SIN. Do you first need to join the broader SIN before applying for a subgroup? I believe for us, you're applying for the subgroup, and then that sort of gets you on the SIN, but we'll be managing it subgroup application by application. Sarah, is that correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Mhm.
And that is very similar to how the FMQSMO does it. We are similar in that. We have another question of will there be a grants management SIN marketplace? I sort of chuckled at that because this is the marketplace for the commercial vendors. The grants QSMO, which there was a question was what does QSMO stand for? Apologies for that. Quality Service Management Office. We're a concept that was created back in 2019. We are the QSMO for grants. However, there's also other QSMOs for acquisition, financial management, HR, and cybersecurity. We do have our marketplace. We have a lot of websites that we try to make sure we're putting that information out. We leverage a website within GSA. We also have hhs.gov/grants QSMO if you want to see more information there. And really, a lot of our resources and tools can be found on our Acquisition Gateway site. Okay, we have another question that came in. Our product is already on the GSA schedule. Should we follow a process to get added to the SIN? Yes, that is this process that we've been been sort of walking through today. Once you're on the schedule or the MAS, then you would be following that application process. It's slide 11 when you get the slides, so that you can be sort of determining your service or solution you're going to apply for, submitting the package information, the required package submission. You'll submit it to your contracting officer for the schedules. And then we, between GSA and the Grants QSMO, will be doing that evaluation. I should note the Grants QSMO will also leverage agency SMEs to help us with that. It's not just us. This is a marketplace that is available for our agency, our federal agency customers. And as Justin just mentioned, is available to our recipient organizations across the tribes, states, and local governments. Right, there is another question. What is the overall timeline? Is there a start date, an end date, or a deadline? I'm very glad someone asked that. If you've worked with the Grants QSMO in the past, we had maybe done an RFI that had a quick turnaround and a deadline. This is different. This is a rolling basis. So there is no deadline for application. However, I will say there is buying customers ready to go. And so if you're not on the SIN when that RFP and task order is put out on the SIN, then maybe that's a missed opportunity. So there's not a deadline that, you must apply by this date. It is a rolling submission. However, as you get on, when you're on the SIN, then you have opportunities to bid on the task orders that come off of that SIN. If a firm has an application currently in evaluation from the FMQSMO, should you wait for that evaluation to be complete before applying to the Grants QSMO? Although we have aligned our evaluation criteria, our processes as much as possible, it is a separate evaluation review. There is a team at the Treasury Department doing their review, and we are a separate team doing our review. So I do not think you need to wait for that evaluation to be complete to begin applying for the Grants QSMO. I would note, though, that we did purposely try to line up our processes. We got that feedback a lot from agencies and vendors that the more consistent we are, the better. We did get some feedback from vendors who had previously applied to the FMQSMO SIN, and there was some confusion in some of the documents, so we tried to clean that up. Although I'll be honest, judging by some of the questions, we maybe didn't do the perfect job of cleaning that up. So I'm going to get to those. Let's see. Another question, do services solutions need to demonstrate compliance with all the capabilities of the grants management capability framework to apply? So the grants management capability framework goes across the entire grants lifecycle. If you look at that, you will see the FIBF defines the beginning of establishing a program to establishing a grant, writing the NOFO, pulling in applications all the way to the end, closing out a grant and doing a program review. Honestly, I don't think there is one solution, IT solution, that does every single part of that process. So no, I would say in general, no one solution does every single part of the FIBF. Quite frankly, that's purposeful. SAM.gov, for instance, is what you must use to register as a recipient, right? So we don't want someone to build another solution that replicates SAM.gov or grants.gov or Federal Audit Clearinghouse. However, our framework does define all those pieces, so everyone has an understanding of what that common standard process is. Further, we define the data standards that we need to be able to talk to each other. That data has to be able to talk across through the APIs so that we can leverage the data much more efficiently than maybe we have in the past. So hopefully that answers your question. However, if for the section that, let's say you're applying for risk management, in the area where there are standards and business capabilities and use cases defining that risk management, yes, 100%, we do expect you to align and comply with those standards and those compliance requirements, right? That's something that we would look for. Let's see. I know there was a question specific to the solution service definition template. Maybe a comment that it's very confusing. A few comments it's very confusing, so we apologize. That's one area we actually did change and try to react to feedback we had previously gotten. In that, there are different tabs. One tab relates again back to the sort of the FIBF, those standards, the overall process flow. We're trying to have you define for us what your solution does or what your service does. Which part of that process are you supporting? And are you supporting all of that process? That's why you have to answer maybe not applicable in other areas, and then tell us where it does apply and how it applies. If you are applying for services, not a solution, then we do not expect you to fill out the technology tab. Apologies, it's maybe a little confusing. They're different tabs. We do say at the top, this is only for technology systems or technology solution offerings. We really only had one tab to sort of attach to GSA, or one file to attach for GSA. So again, if you are applying for a technology solution, we do expect for you then to be answering the details of that technology offering, such as your interfaces you already have, what your FedRAMP status is, if you have it infrastructure, platform, and software level. There's specific questions. Your document, for instance, file attachment, types of grants you may support. That does not apply for services. If you're applying for services only, we want you to fill out the first tab, which also technology offerings need to fill out too. But that is, again, how you're defining what your solution offering is or your service offering is. I hope that by services only application, I meant professional services. So correct, professional services, we would consider services in support of IT. I'm not going to today walk through the SIN specific template. If you have questions based on what I just mentioned, feel free to reach out to the Grants QSMO inbox. Hopefully that makes it much more straightforward if you understand that, which part we're expecting you to fill out based on what it is. Will you be doing a webinar that focuses on technology proposal templates and how to fill them out, not how to answer them? I'm hoping, I'm trying to highlight the questions that you might have. We tried to define in those documents, as well as I will continue to iterate. There is vendor guidance on the acquisition gateway that does walk through these templates. So I'm not sure that we're going to do another webinar, but we will continue to push you to the vendor guidance. We've heard in the past, we don't want to put too many different places where all the different guidance is. We tried to make that be that one-stop shop. You go to the GSA SIN page to download the application materials. You go to the vendor guidance document on our acquisition gateway to walk you through those materials. When will contractors be able to start submitting applications for the SIN? Now, please now, we're ready. It was open June 4th, I believe. I'll be honest, we have yet to receive an application, so please start applying. We are prepared and excited to review your applications. We have agencies ready to work with us to purchase off of, work with us to review, work with us to purchase. So we want to make sure, that's why we asked GSA, hey, can we do a webinar to make sure we're getting everyone's questions answered? It's also why we did the poll, so we could maybe predict a little bit how awful our autumn is going to be. But we are ready. It is open now for application. Is the new SIN a fresh start for the QSMO? What happens with previous grants management vendors who were already on the QSMO for previous years? Thank you for asking that question. Yes, you need to apply to the SIN. If you were previously on our catalog for market research, or you've just responded to the RFI, so maybe we have your information, we want you, no, you need to apply to the SIN. There's a lot of value for us in getting folks on the multiple award schedule, one that really supports a lot of the executive orders to support the multiple award schedule. It allows us to work with GSA on fair and reasonable pricing, on shared terms and conditions. It also allows us to make sure you understand these are the standards that I need to follow. Also, a great value is as Justin talked about, it opens up a whole landscape of additional buyers to the multiple award schedule, to you as a SIN provider that tribes, local governments, states may want to purchase. We are, as the grants QSMO, I've had that question be asked, how are you making sure those grant recipients are aware this offering is to them? We've already worked, we'll be at AGA next week sharing that. We have a NASDAQ panel coming up. So we're trying to make sure we get the word out, obviously working with our tribal partners across the agencies to also get the word out. Okay. Let's see. I'm sorry. I am going all over the place. Kiva's probably ready to kill me because I am not following these. I need to go to the bottom probably to see what's been submitted. Will grant monitoring contracts be awarded via the grants QSMO? Again, I think it is, again, you apply for a service. You tell us, you use our templates to tell us what that services does. Grant monitoring is a big word, so I'm not sure. I don't want to interpret what you mean by that question. But I'd say the goal is, if it's a service, to apply, to use the templates to explain what your offering does. But that is something that I would see that could fall into additional support services. The one thing I would note too, though, we do have another subgroup that is planned out but not yet added to the SIN, because we need to set and work with OMB to set the evaluation criteria. That is for grants performance management. So that is something that is coming up. Will grants management services, non-IT, be procured under this SIN, or it be more IT technology solutions for grants management? I think that very similar to the FM QSMO, we are looking at services that align to the grants management capability framework. So if you open that up and you read it, pretty much everything does use technology to do that and support that. So I think the scope of what is available for this SIN is truly defined by that grants management capability framework. If you have a question about that, definitely reach out. Is there an anticipated live date? For the grants performance management services subgroup. I cannot predict that. I'm really sorry. There's just so many variables that we're dependent on to get that out. It's a miracle we were able to get the grants QSMO SIN done very quickly in record time. Like 75% of the time it's taken previous SINs to get reviewed and approved. So that was a huge effort by the grants QSMO team, as well as our amazing partners at GSA. So I can't predict timing because it really does count on a lot of aspects. And when I say GSA, it's not one GSA team, there's a whole bunch of people working together. Do you need a product for the SIN or providing services such as grants management also permitted? And can the SIN be added with the services? I am not sure if I'm interpreting that question correctly. I think they mean when you say product, I'm assuming you're meaning a solution, like an IT solution. You can apply for your solution, your technology solution, and or you can apply for the service. So if it's a service that's on top of that solution, then you can apply for that together, for instance, if that's helpful. When do you expect the SIN to go live in terms of contracts using the SIN? So the SIN is live. It's live because it's open for applications. As we review those applications and vendors are put on the SIN, one, we will be advertising that across our marketplace websites. You're asking, I think, of when will contracts be put on the SIN? I sadly can't predict that because some of that depends on how quickly you apply. I would say once we get 2 or 3 people on the SIN, then I think the buyers are ready to come. So that is tricky. I'd say that depends on you. Will application for the SIN also be accomplished by FCP? I am not sure what FCP, does anyone know? Okay, I apologize. If you want to explain FCP, that let me know. Or Sarah or Jenna, that may be a acquisition term I'm just not aware of.
Yeah, can you restate the question?
Will application for this SIN also be accomplished by FCP?
Yes, so you will, if you're already in FCP, you'll be using it with the SIN as well. So it's just, we're transitioning from the price proposal template to FCP. So if you've already been incorporated into the FCP system, you'll continue using that and it will apply to every SIN that you have.
There we go. Fantastic. Thank you. Will there be an OMB or other policy requirement that agencies use the grants management marketplace and grants management SIN? There are already policy requirements that require agencies to work with the grants QSMO. M1916 was the first memo that really drives agencies to work with the grants QSMO to adopt the grants data standards. The GRADE Act requires adoption of the data standards. They don't specifically say the grants QSMO, but the method to adopt that and know that these are validated against those standards is through this SIN. There are a few other memos, I think 3 other memos that OMB have put out reiterating the need to work with the grants QSMO, as well as 2 CFR. There's a part of 2 CFR that also requires agencies to work with the grants QSMO. So there is that. There continues to be budget guidance reiterating the need to leverage the grants QSMO federal and approved vendors. Sorry for the follow-up question. Our product is already on the GSA schedules. So we have to go through the application process here in QSMO based on the subgroups we choose and get it approved to be added to this new SIN. That is correct. Our contracting officer doesn't have to do anything with GSA. We answer and provide the capabilities and the demos. So the contracting officers are, I believe the contracting officers are GSA employees. So by going to your mass contracting officers, you're going to GSA. They're going to do that initial intake. They will do an initial review, I assume, based on the process flow we've agreed to. And then they will be sending it to the grants QSMO to do our technical review. Again, aligned to the evaluation criteria, which are very transparently defined on in our capability framework, as well as it's very obvious you're answering a question per evaluation criteria when you submit your technical narrative. Sarah, anything to add?
Nope, you got it. So and your CO through GSA, they are also your CO on, your entire contract that's on the mass schedule. They should be able to assist you and ensure that you're getting all that information.
Great. Let's see. An example of a federal agency grants management requirement is an agency wants a contractor to provide 5 grants management specialists for a year. Would that be procured through the SIN, or would it be continued to be procured through 541611? I am not gonna answer that. I'm just a little nervous. I don't know. I don't know. I think 541611. I don't want to guess. And also I'm not a contracting officer. I'm a core, but I'm not a contracting officer. So I don't want to get myself in trouble by saying what goes where. I will just tell you, as we have told the COFA, as well as all of our federal awarding agency partners, this SIN is established to give them buying confidence that when they go and look at this and put a task order off of this SIN, it is to give them confidence that they're not just buying a technology service that's passed through GSA's terms and conditions, reasonable, fair, and pricing. It's also adding a layer of saying, are you a subject matter expertise in grants management? Do you understand what 2 CFR is? Do you understand that there are grants data standards that legally these agencies have to follow and adopt? I'll be honest, I've seen and I've reviewed task orders where agencies have forgot maybe to require 2 CFR, or they awarded a contract not through any work of our market research on their own, and they get a vendor who comes in and actually asks them, sorry, what did you mean by 2 CFR? I joke that should absolutely never happen. If you are buying something off of the grants management SIN, there should never be a time when a vendor comes and says, sorry, what's 2 CFR? So please help me keep that promise to these buyers. The grants management space it's a lot. There's a lot of aspects. It's an interesting process. It is not the same as acquisition or the same as finance, right? It's its own unique thing. It is its own capability framework, very well defined through hard work with our government leads to define those standards. So now we're going to put that effort to use, as well as make sure they're compliant, right? The GRADE Act and 2 CFR has a lot of requirements. We want to make sure we're giving that to them. Okay. Let's see. Do we submit a separate spreadsheet for each subgroup to which we are applying? Thank you. Great question. Yes, you do. So for each subgroup, and actually each service. So let's say you have NOFO simplification tool, and you have risk management support services. You would be submitting a technical narrative. Let's see, if it's NOFO simplification tool, you're going to be submitting a technical narrative, a solution service definition template with the technology piece filled out because it's a technology solution that needs to be ATO'd. And you would be submitting a pre-recorded demo, the 60-minute demo, because it's a technology offering. Then for the risk management services, you're going to submit a different technical narrative and solution service template. But for that one, you're only going to be filling out the first tab, which is again telling us what part of the life cycle it supports. I hope that explains it. Again, you can continue to ask us questions to the Grants QSO inbox. We will do our best to make sure we answer your questions. I know I only have 2 minutes left. Want to verify there are 2 templates needed to fill out for the package to be submitted. Correct. I want to note, Sarah and Jenna, when I'm talking about the templates and what needs to be submitted, that is specific for the grants management, sort of the QSMO part. I believe there may be more packages, Sarah, that have more things that have to be submitted. So I apologize that I totally could create a confusion there.
No, so as well as if you look at the slides that Jenna and I presented on, there are links that you can click on that will take you to those packages for submitting a new offer, as well as adding the SIN and the required templates we require on the mass schedule site. So you can find those in our slides as well.
Thank you, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
I may have oversimplified that, so I apologize. It looks like there's one more question. If you had seen our initial sort of announcement when we established the SIN. We had 4 subgroups, 3 that I talked about today, 1 more specific to grants performance management. It is not separate from the SIN. It's an additional subgroup that we expect to add, which will have its own aligned evaluation criteria. That is still being defined. That's why you don't see it in our products, and it is not open for application at this time. All right. Woo, you guys kept me on my toes. It is 1:30. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much for submitting your questions and participating in the survey. As we mentioned many times in the chat, we got lots of questions about, will these slides be available? We will be providing you a link. We just have to make sure everything's 508 compliant and get it up to you. I think we've been making sure everyone has the links to our acquisition gateway. Please check that out. And definitely keep in touch and please apply because we are ready to open this storefront. Thank you so much.